Sometimes you only get one shot of glory, but for this guy, he had a lot of glory in junior hockey, but when he got to the NHL, he really thought this guy was going to be the next part of a second wave of the French Connection. My God, he scored 92 goals in his last year of junior at Sorel with in a very, very strong Q season. One of the biggest seasons in the Sorel history, 227 points and 92 goals. Now, Michel Deziel, or Deziel, was 47 overall by the Sabres in the 74 NHL entry draft. The left winger had good size, 5'11", 180. Now, born in Sorel, and played 4 seasons with the BlackHawks, Sorel Hawks. 25 goals and 47 points in 60 games his first season. 61 points in 48 games in his second campaign. But 73 really opened out with 50 goals and 72 assists for 122 points. Now, 74, ladies and gentlemen, he was only ranked number 33 overall in the draft despite 227 points and 92 goals. Now, rated in the Hockey News draft preview issue as the number 33rd overall prospect in the 74 NHL draft. He played in the line with Pierre Larouche and Jacques Cossette for Sorel in that campaign, and Larouche had an outstanding campaign. War number 15 for the Sabres. Now, his only game in the NHL was a playoff contest in a match that was historic. It was the last game in which Henri Richard scored, and Sabres had knocked off Montreal 4-2 in Game 2 of the semifinal series, the French Connection. A lot of people felt this was going to be his big break. Now, he did play in Hershey, Rhode Island, Binghamton of the AHL, and Milwaukee of the IHL. In the WHA draft, he was taken by New England at number 56 overall in round 4. Now, he did not play during the 79 campaign, but returned for a start of 79-80 before retirement. Now, Michel, again, can best be described as a scorer. Now, Sorel Tracy, one of the nicest communities in Quebec. His draft year was loaded with talent, but in that contest on May 1st, 75 against the Habs, he did not score a point. The rest of his career, which lasted from 74 to 80, was spent in the minor leagues. Still don't understand why. He would have been great for Toronto. Again, his major year for the Sorel BlackHawks, a team that averaged 9 goals a game. The mark stands as the 4th highest single season point total ever in Q history. Now, with the Sorel BlackHawks, for the 5 people out there that do not know the franchise, this was a marquee squad, Epavia, or BlackHawks. The team was one of the founding members of the Q and existed from 69 to 81. They mostly played at Colisée Cardin in Sorel Tracy, Quebec, but also spent a few seasons in Verdun, in the Montreal suburb of Verdun. Roderick Lemoyon served as a team GM. Ray Bourque is the only former Blackhawk in the Hockey Hall of Fame. They originated in the Quebec Junior Hockey League and were the league's champion in 69. Sorel were finalists in the Eastern Canadian Championship for the George Richardson Memorial Trophy, but lost 3-1 to the Montreal Junior Canadiens. Now, the 74 Q season sparked an offensive explosion unmatched in Canadian Hockey League history. Sorel, led by Larouche, Deziel, and Jacques Cossette, scored 620 goals. Each of them had more than 90 goals and 200 points each. Sorel goaltender Claude Legris also posted the highest goal against average of 4.9 per game for a Jacques Plante Memorial Trophy winner. Now, at the time, ladies and gentlemen, their offense was just tremendous. Now, in 81, the franchise moved to Grand Bay, Quebec, where they became the Grand Bay Bisons. They won a Memorial Cup there in 96. The franchise is now the Cape Breton Oilers. So, key players, Normand Aubin, Macro Baron, Michel Belmieux, Michel Bergeron, Serge Bernier, Gilles Bélideau, Ray Bourque, Jacques Cossette, Richard David, Lucien Deblois, Michel Deziel, Jacques-Marc Gaulin, Pierre Giroux, Benoit Gosselin, Brian Johnson, Steve Casper, actually, Alan Langley, Jean-Marc Lantier, Pierre Larouche, Claude Legris, Pierre Mondou, Bob Ritchie, Ron Smith, and Chris Valentine. And again, known as Sorel BlackHawks for many of their campaign. So looking at the 74 season, ladies and gentlemen, first in the East, 58, 11, and 1 for 117 points. They scored 620, gave up 301, so 921 goals in their contests. So that again in 70 games, that was pretty freaky. Over almost 13 goals, more than 13 goals a game. So why do you think Deziel never really did it the way he should have. Well, there's no right or wrong answer to that, but I'll give you the stats. He played with the Hershey Bears in 75 and had a good season with 51 points in 69 games, including 27 goals. He did play in the postseason for Hershey and then was called up for Buffalo. And you figure, hey, he's going to get a break. But there was no room at the end in 76, as again he was in the AHL. 55 points in 71 games, including 25 counters. With the Rhode Island Reds of the AHL, he had 15 counters in 77. But after a rough 8-game stint with the Binghamton Dusters of the AHL in 78, he kind of resigned, came back and scored 1 goal from Milwaukee in 79-80. Now, he's part of a very big list of players that have only played in a single contest. And there's quite a few through the years, but what stands out for me, we noticed him on the ice, and my dad was saying, hey, that's the big scorer from Sorel. But you got to look at there, ladies and gentlemen, that year they had Luce, they had Ramsey, Martin, Robert, Perreault, Stanfield, Spencer. You know, there wasn't much room at the end. But I think with Toronto, even Montreal should have got a chance on him. Because, I mean, you look at Pierre Larouche, who was playing with Pittsburgh later on, that also played with Montreal. Like the loss era of the Q League, he's a big part of that, because anybody with 92 goals and can't make the NHL, holy frig, man. I mean, nowadays, how many players score 92 goals in a season, even in England, where they're scoring tons of goals? So, Michel Deziel. So, if anybody followed his career in Sorel, please let me know what type of player he was. I heard he was a very good playmaker as well. But 200 and some points, that's fucking Gretzky numbers. You know, and only in 70 games. So, the idea back then, ladies and gentlemen, nobody was drafting Q goalies because he felt they were a sieve. So you can imagine, when he was drafted, come on. Anybody could have drafted him. The Islanders could have used him, the young Islanders. Pittsburgh, if they're going to draft LaRouche, it's the next year. I think LaRouche's draft year was the next year. So even the Washington Capitals, ladies and gentlemen, holy frig. So I don't think people scouted, or maybe they were trying to say, well, they're just too offensive on a team. He has no defensive capabilities. He's bound to score a few goals. You put him on the right line. Can you imagine putting on a line with Mondeau later on and Lambert? Risebrough was okay and so was Trombley, but this guy, you look at the stats were there. It's one of the most confusing things I've ever talked about as a journalist, why this guy was never an NHL star. And I don't think it's any of his fault, but just bad timing or whatever. No room in the end, because Buffalo was loaded back then, ladies and gentlemen. And, you had Danny Gare, and, they had 3 big lines. Where's he going to play? And, ironically, Spencer was gone later on, and, he never gave him a second chance. Go figure. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing on our former Q superstars, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.